Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This is going to be the mid-year freakout tag. It is currently July 5th when I'm filming this, so it's definitely that mid-year kind of point in time. And so this is just a list of questions that kind of talk about your reading in the first half of the year, and there are 13 questions, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I'm just going to read through the questions, answer them, and kind of talk about like the highs and the lows of the year so far with reading. And I will leave these questions in the description as well if you want to do this for yourself, or if you just want to, like, whether you want to film a video or just answer them in the comments. So the first book is Best Book of the Year. By a landslide, the best book I've read of this year is Pucking Around by Emily Rath. If you know me, you will not be surprised that I've said this. So this basically is a MMFM hockey romance. It's the first book in the Jacksonville Rays series, and this I have already read twice. And I read it in March and April, so I read it twice. Definitely favorite book of the year so far. But this basically, we follow Rachel, who basically she ends up having to move to Jacksonville, Florida to take on a position working with the Jacksonville Rays hockey team, which is the NHL's like newest expansion team. And basically, little does Rachel know when she takes this job offer that one of the defensemen on the team is the guy that she had a one-night stand in Seattle like 2 months prior. And then also she kind of ends up rekindling that relationship with that guy, which is Jake. And then she also slowly becomes friends with Caleb, who is Jake's best friend and the team's equipment manager. And then also Ilmari, who is one of the team's goalies. And so it is a MMFM because Caleb has feelings for Jake, and Jake kind of discovers his sexuality in this book, and it is amazing. I love it. It is like 750 pages. It is a chunky book, but it is just so good because there's all of these different dynamics, and it just has all of these different levels within the characters and just the way they act and the way that they are, and I love it. I love it so much. I need to get my hands on a copy of it because I've only read it, like I had an arc of it, and then I read it on Kindle Unlimited because give the author the money. But I plan on buying, there's a special edition that it's currently sold out on the author's website, but I will be buying that. I also will be buying the regular edition probably once I move and kind of figure out my financial situation right now, because I can't really buy books right now. And so yeah, I loved it so much. It's, put it this way, it's 10 out of 5 stars. Honestly, it has moved to probably my top 3 books of all time, honestly, and I already want to reread it. Question number 2, best sequel you read so far in 2023. I have 3 answers for this. So the first book is Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton, which is the sequel to Haunting Adeline. And basically in Haunting Adeline, we are following Zaid and Addie. Addie is a writer who recently moved into the manor that her grandmother left her in her will, and so she's moving into that manor. And then we're following Zaid, who is Addie's stalker and the creator of this secretive company that is kind of trying to end the kidnapping, murder, and sex trafficking of women and children. And it is very, very dark, and Hunting Adeline is very, very dark. It's even darker than the first book. And I feel like it's a really good sequel because it takes what you know when you learn in Haunting Adeline and just makes it a lot darker. And it also talks a lot about sex trafficking and sex slavery and the toll it takes on the women and children involved, and just it adds such a darker level to that. And it also is just, it also shows the trauma and the struggle of integrating back into your normal life after you're rescued, if you are able to be rescued. And so it is one of the best sequels I've read this year, just because of how dark it is, but also how well the topic is handled, I guess I should say. And how much I love Zayd and Addie. Like, I love them with every ounce of my heart. You will see Zayd mentioned later on this list. I will just say that. The next is Twisted Lies by Anna Huang, which is the 4th book in the Twisted series, and this is Stella and Christian's story. And basically, Stella is kind of a fashion influencer, and Christian is the like CEO billionaire of this company. And basically, they kind of like know each other a little bit because like they have friends that are together, so it's like they know of each other, but they're not friends. And then Stella rents an apartment from Christian. And then for a reason, they need to start fake dating. And then that fake dating turns into real dating. And I really like this. This was my favorite book in the Twisted series. I love Stella and Christian so much. And so I feel like it's one of the better sequels that I've read, because you also see the characters from the first 3 books in this. So it's kind of like, it is Christian and Stella's story, but you see the other characters who I love. So I feel like it's just very like a well-rounded story, and I love it. And then one of the best sequels that I've read so far in 2023 is also Cherished by Tracy Wolff, which is the 6th book in the Crave series, which is a like YA paranormal series. I'm not really going to talk too much about this because I don't want to spoil much. But basically, I feel like this is a good sequel because it wraps up the story nicely, and it just is such a fun read. Like, when in doubt, I love the Crave series, so it's such a fun read. And so I would say it is one of the better sequels I've read. Okay, so question number 3. New releases you haven't read yet but want to. I have 3. These are kind of the first 3 that popped into my mind when answering these questions. So Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I currently am waiting for my copy of this book to arrive, and then I will be reading it. The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I love the Flock of the Air series. I read it in 2020, loved it. And so eventually I do want to read The Stolen Heir because I want to read more about this world and all that. It's just not something that I've like immediately been like, oh, I want to read it. Honestly, I might wait for the sequel to come out, because the 2nd book in the series comes out next year, and then just binge it. Maybe, who knows. And then The Sun and the Star by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro. When in doubt, I love the Percy Jackson series. I love the Heroes of Olympus series. I love the Trials of Apollo series. And so The Sun and the Star is kind of the sequel to all of those, where we are following Nico and Will, who are 2 characters I love. And so I'm honestly shocked that I haven't read this yet, but it's mostly, I'm putting it off because it's weird. I want to read it so badly, but also at the same time I don't want to read it because I don't want to have that story be done, if that makes any sense at all. I'm stalling reading it basically, but I might say screw it and just get a copy from my library, like, and just read it. Question number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have 3. So Wildfire by Hannah Grace, which is the 2nd book in the Maple Hills series, which the 1st book is Icebreaker, which I read in February, absolutely loved. And so Wildfire is the 2nd book within that series. We are following like one of the friends of one of the characters in Icebreaker, and I believe this takes place in like a summer camp. And so I'm like, hello, sign me up. Or at least part of it takes place in a summer camp. I'm not too sure, honestly, but I am really excited for it. I plan on reading every single book now by Hannah Grace because I loved Icebreaker that much. Although shockingly, it's not on any of these lists, I don't think. A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber is the 3rd book in the brain farting is the 3rd book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which is a spin-off series to Caraval. But this is going to be the third and final book in this series, and I loved the first two. And so I'm sitting here waiting for it. Book 2, The Ballad of Never After, left off on quite a big cliffhanger. And so I'm sitting here like, gimme it now. And the final book that I'm including on this list, there's so many other books that I'm excited for, but these are, when in doubt with these questions, it was the first things to come to mind that I wrote down. So Pucking Wild by Emily Rath, which is the second book in the Jacksonville Ray series. So it's the sequel to Pucking Around, but we are following a different set of characters. We are following Tess, who is Rachel's best friend, and Ryan, who is one of the players on the team. And this I'm really excited for because it is a reverse age gap. So basically Tess is older than Ryan by I think 10 or 11 years. And also I'm gonna say one word that is going to get my friend Morgan excited. And if you know what it is, you know what it is. If you don't know what this is, I'm not teaching you what it is. I'll say one thing: pegging. If Morgan, if you're watching this, yeah. And so I'm excited because I will read everything in the Jacksonville Ray series as they come out, and I do really want to read more of Emily Rath's other books too. Biggest disappointment. I hate to say this, but it's Hooked by Emily McIntyre. This was the first book I DNF'd. I DNF'd it literally within the first week of January. It just wasn't for me. This is a dark Peter Pan retelling, and I just couldn't connect with the characters. I didn't like the atmosphere, and I just felt like, this is gonna sound dramatic, but I literally would have rather never read another book than finished this one. I get why people like it. I can understand why some people might like it. But for me, I like dark romance. It's just, this just wasn't my cup of tea. I just didn't like it. The reason it was a disappointment is because Book Talk hyped it up. They said, oh my god, this is amazing dark romance. Every dark romance lover should read it. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited. And then I just didn't like anything about it. But again, I understand why people would like it. And I do appreciate Emily McIntyre for writing it. And I appreciate those people who do like it. It's just not for me. Question number 6, biggest surprise. We're mentioning this book again, Pucking Around by Emily Rath. I like knew I was gonna like it because I was like, oh, hockey romance, I'm kind of getting into that, like, let's read this. Oh my god, I am still obsessed with it. I did not expect to be so obsessed with it and just love it so much, to the point that when I reread it in 2 days. This is a 750 page book, and I read it in like, I want to say like less than 36 hours. My reread, yeah. And honestly, again, I probably will reread it before Pucking Wild comes out in August because I'm insane. But when in doubt, I loved it. It surprised me so much because, again, I knew I was gonna like it, but I didn't expect to be absolutely obsessed with it. So that's why it's surprising. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? I'm including 2. Yes, I've only read a couple books by each of these authors, but I can see them becoming a favorite. And also, I didn't really have any other authors on that I could feel I could fit with this. So when in doubt, Emily Rath. I have read the 3 of her books. That One Night, which is the prequel to Pucking Around, and then Pucking Ever After, which is kind of like a sequel novella, kind of giant epilogue of sorts. And I loved all of those. I gave them all 5 stars. And I am excited to read more of Emily Rath's book. I know she has a historical, either 1 or 2 historical fiction, like polyamorous books. And then she also has a Omegaverse book. And I'm excited to read all of those. And I feel like I'll like them. So hence why I'm saying like she's a favorite new author, because I feel like I'm going to love everything I read by her. And the same thing goes by H.D. Carlton. I have read Satan's Affair, Haunting Adeline, and Hunting Adeline, and I loved them all. I gave them all 3 5 stars. So it's kind of a similar thing of Emily Rath, of I've only read those, but I love them, and I have a feeling that I will love her other books. I know I really want to read Does It Hurt? And I've heard really good things about that from friends, so that would probably be my next H.D. Carlton book I'll read. As well as I know she has some other books too that I'm also interested in. So again, it's kind of like a, yes, I've only read like one series technically by each of them, but I feel like everything else by them I will like too. So that's why I'm like, they're like tentative favorites, I guess. Question number 8 is newest fictional crush, and I have a couple. This was honestly hard to do, and so I kind of picked a couple. So Zayd and Addie from Haunting Adeline, I love them so much. I definitely was reading the books and having a huge crush on them. And then Christian from Twisted Lies, I love him so much. I'm sitting here like, where can I get one of him, please? And then Nate and Anastasia from Icebreaker, which I mentioned before, which is a hockey romance. Nate is a hockey player. Anastasia is a figure skater. And they basically end up, like the hockey players and the figure skaters have to basically end up sharing a rink because the other rink within the facility like got vandalized, got broken type thing. They had to fix it. And by kind of them having to share the ice, Nate and Anastasia end up kind of having to see each other more, and they kind of slowly get close and become friends, and then become more yeah, I freaking love both of them. I that's all I could say is I just love both of them. And then prompt number 9, newest favorite characters. Technically these characters also fit under newest fictional crush, and we're gonna say this together. All the characters from Pucking Around. I fucking love Rachel. I love Ilmari, I love Jake, I love Caleb, I love all of the side characters too. I pretty much love everybody in this book. So they're favorites, but I also have huge crushes on them. Like, I'm sorry, where can I get me a hockey player? Like, I want one. Sign me up for one. And yeah, so they're favorites. I love them so much. Prompt number 10, book that made you cry. I have 2, but they're like for 2 different reasons. So the first book is Sunk by Tori Heat. This basically is a MMFM romance. And basically this is a forced proximity where we basically are following these 4 characters on a submarine for like, and they're trying to discover the newest, deepest point in the ocean. And I will just say I violently sobbed at the end of this book. For probably a good 2 chapters straight, was violently sobbing like my heart out. Yes, I think I only gave this book like 4 stars, but oh my god, I was sobbing to the point that I couldn't read. I was sobbing to the point that I thought I was gonna throw up. It was insane. Oh my gosh. I will just say, this Tori Heat did oh my gosh, she was not afraid to go there. She was not afraid to go there. And I honestly appreciate her for going where she went with this. And I'm gonna start fucking crying just thinking about it. So we're gonna move on to the other book that made me cry, which is Tears in the Water by Margarita Scilia. I saved on TikTok how to pronounce the author's last name, and I forgot to look it up before this. But this is kind of almost like a slice of life where we're following Alex and Tate, and basically they end up meeting each other through a mutual friend and kind of start becoming friends and liking each other. But why this made me cry is because of Alex has like severe anxiety, and I related to them so much in that because I have anxiety, and so it very much, excuse me, Skull, I want to put my freaking elbow there. And so it just made me really emotional kind of seeing somebody have anxiety in the same way I do on page. Okay, sorry if the camera angle changed a little bit. I had to go help my mom with something. You might not even notice it. But we are on to question number 11, which is book that made you happy. And I have two, well, technically three because one's a series. The first ones I'm going to talk about are Losers Part 1 and Part 2 by Harley Laroux. This is a MMMF. Is that the right amount of M's? We're going with it. Polyamorous bi choose book where basically everybody is kind of together in some way, shape, or form. This basically we are kind of this is kind of almost like a sequel to The Dare by Harley Laroux, which was it's kind of like a pretty popular like dark erotic romance novella. And so Losers follows that 2 years later, where we are following Jess, who she ends up moving back to her hometown after like university to kind of like, she's working a remote job, so she's able to live back home to kind of save money on rent and all that. And when she moves back, she ends up reuniting with these 4 guys that she had a one-night stand on Halloween with like 2 years prior, and realizing that maybe that one-night stand shouldn't have been just a one-night stand. And this is hella smutty, hella kinky. Honestly, you can probably name a kink and something close to it is in this. And this book made me happy because it is just the like 5 characters embracing their selves. Like, all of the guys are queer, and so it's just them embracing that, and like they're not afraid to like express that. They're not afraid to like admit it. And then Jess, she's kind of realizing that like she's not the person that her parents think she is, and embracing that and loving it. And this book is just showing that love is love, no matter what the dynamic between the characters are. Like, between all of the guys, there's that like friendship level of love, but then with a couple of them there is that more like romantic love. And then obviously there's the romantic love with Jess and all 4 guys. So it kind of is just, what made me happy is it just kind of is love in whatever way you want it to be. And that's kind of why it made me happy. I mean, it also made me happy because it was smutty as fuck, but we're not talking about that. And then the other book that this book could have fit in the books that made you cry and the books that made me happy is Someday by Emma Scott. This basically, we follow Max and Silas, and they both are recovering addicts. And Max has kind of got his life around. He's now has a medical degree in nursing, and basically he ends up working as a private nurse for Silas's father, and that's how Max meets Silas. And well, technically they met at AA, which is Addicts Anonymous, and it is the story of them becoming friends and then eventually kind of realizing they have feelings for each other, but Max doesn't want to act on them because of Silas being technically his boss's son. And then Silas doesn't want to act on them because when he was a teenager, he was sent to conversion therapy, and so he has the trauma around that. And why this makes me happy is because it does show that characters with trauma, characters that used to be addicts, and that they are 2 characters that basically did what they did to survive, having a happy ending, and overall overcoming those challenges and having that happy ending no matter how hard the struggle was. That really made me happy. And obviously this book did also make me cry because of the whole, like, them being ex-addicts and them both having horrible backgrounds, and obviously Silas being sent to conversion therapy. All of that stuff was sad, but ultimately by the end of the book, I was just happy that they were happy and in a good point of their life. And just in a good point in their life. And so that's really why it made me happy. Question number 12 is most beautiful book you've bought so far or received. Technically both of them. So I have 4 books that I'm talking about. All of these I technically bought last year, but they arrived this year, so I'm counting them. So the first 2 are Divine Blood and Shattered Souls by Beck Michaels. You may say, oh, why are these the favorite? First of all, gorgeous sprayed edges, but it is the Under the Dust jacket on the naked hardcover. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. It is stunning. It is one of the gorgeous books that I own. And then the same goes for this. Just absolutely stunning, gorgeous. I love it. And so those are beautiful, but then I also have to include my Fairy Loot copies of House of Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. These, I'm not going to show you everything about them, but first they come in this gorgeous slipcase. I'm just going to show you House of Earth and Blood just to save time, but gorgeous cover, gorgeous spine, gorgeous back, gorgeous edges, end pages that are gorgeous, and then beautiful under like embossed cover. Like, so it's just they are just beautiful, and House of Sky and Breath is just as beautiful. I love these. These were worth every penny, and also totally worth the chaoticness that was the sale of these. And then the final question 13, is what books do you need to read by the end of this year? Everything on my 23 books to read in 2023 minus like a couple books. I'd love to get to The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Oh my god, I'm ruining my things. Where's A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. I'm just pulling ones off my shelf that I really want to read. Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which is currently on my July TBR. I'd love to read, like, there's so many books. King of Pride by Anna Huang. I need to read, just continuing more of the series that I have started. Reading my books on These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 Months. Honestly, I just need to read, period. So, the couple books that I mentioned specifically, plus just everything. I need to read everything. I don't really have specific answers for this, because when in doubt, a reader is never done reading. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. Why don't you answer the question of what's the best book you've read this year? Let me know that in the comments below. I really hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really helps my channel grow. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!